And thank you so much for joining us. Plastic is everywhere, but in the plastic detox, we see what happens when the plastic and petrochemical problem moves from our kitchen counters into people's lungs and bloodstream. In the shadow of massive petrochemical plants, communities living near these facilities can face significant higher risk of cancer and other serious illnesses compared to the general population. In Louisiana's river parishes, an 85-mile stretch of land once lined with sugarcane plantations is now packed with refineries and chemical plants so dense it has been called Cancer Alley. For families in St. James Parish, community members deal with a lifetime of loved ones getting sick, of ancestral land being threatened, and of people being told their lives are a fair trade for economic development. The plastic detox introduced the world to the courageous Sharon Lavigne, one of the biggest advocates for their community. Sharon's passion for solving the health crisis in her community guided her to start Rise St. James. Rise St. James is a faith-based grassroots organization that fights environmental injustice in Louisiana's Cancer Alley by opposing petrochemical expansion and protecting community health, land, air, and water. So today we have the pleasure of speaking with Shamell Lavigne, Chief Operating Officer of Rise St. James. So really, really excited. Shamell just joined us. Hello.
Hey, hi. How are
Thank
you?
Good. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. It's such a pleasure.
It's a pleasure to meet you as well.
Yay. Okay. Without further ado, let's get started.
Okay.
First of all, for those who don't know about you, like tell us a little bit about yourself and then how you became interested in the advocacy work.
Well, like you said, my name is Shamell Lavigne. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Rise St. James, Louisiana. I am the granddaughter of a civil rights activist, Milton Kayette Sr., who worked really hard during the civil rights movement to integrate the public schools in St. James Parish. And of course, I am the daughter of Sharon Lavigne, who founded our awesome environmental justice organization, Rise St. James. But of course, I have over 20 years of experience in public health, having worked with people living with HIV, and also advocating for people living with HIV and also underserved populations. So advocacy is in my blood. And when we found out that Formosa Plastics, a $9.4 billion at the time, $9.4 billion plastics plant was proposing to be built 2 miles from my mother's home where I grew up. I called her, and we were very appalled by the fact that they were trying to put this massive plastics plant this close to people's homes, within a mile of an elementary school. And my mama prayed about it. Of course, I was, whatever she wanted to do, I was fully supportive of it. And she prayed about it, and God said to fight, and that's what we've been doing ever since.
That is amazing. It's a really a long lineage. Starting
Yes.
from your grandparents. I love the story.
Mhm. Yeah.
So Rice St. James, tell us about Rice St. James. What is the organization's mission?
So Rise St. James is a faith-based grassroots environmental justice organization. It was founded by my mom, Sharon Lavigne, in 2018. Initially, it was to stop Formosa Plastics, but since that time, it's grown to stop the proliferation of petrochemical industries throughout Cancer Alley, which is that 85-mile stretch
Mhm.
from Baton Rouge to New Orleans that you described earlier.
Oh, wow. We love your website slogan, which is resilience, recovery, and reimagination. Like it's just all very powerful words. So what do these words mean to you?
Yeah, so it signifies like our strength, um, and our efforts to like keep fighting and not feel so overwhelmed when we get intimidated by these big industries, because we're going up against billion dollar industries. that are, they're rooted in oil and gas, which is, Louisiana is a pro industry, pro oil and gas state. And so we are going up against not only the industries, but also public officials, elected officials who feel like industry brings in all these jobs and it's supporting the economy. But they don't take into consideration the impact that it's having on people's health, and that these industries are causing illnesses, upper respiratory illnesses, cancer, and even death. And so the resiliency part is being, remaining steadfast. And then of course, we have to recover. We want to recover the land that has been lost. Like, my family has been in St. James over 5 generations. We also have ties to the land because our ancestors were enslaved on this land. And you know, my family has acres of land, and it's like we want to preserve that land. We want to also preserve the land where our enslaved ancestors are buried, to make sure that they're not further desecrated. And so we know that we have to recover this land. We have to make sure that we reclaim it. And then we want to reimagine, which is a lot of what we've been doing is reimagining what we want St. James and the river parishes to look like, um, outside of the petrochemical industry, whether that means, green industries, or bringing back more stores, and revitalizing the community, so it's a place where people want to come back to, because like people, if you're building plants on top of people,
Yeah.
the younger folks, they're moving away, and then it's the elderly that's still left struggling. And so we don't want people to run us off of this land that our ancestors tilled the land, and there's blood, sweat, and tears in that land, and we're not giving it up easily.
I love it. Why is faith such an important piece of the puzzle, especially for your close community in Louisiana?
Yeah, so we don't do anything without praying first. Rise was founded just on my mother praying to God and saying, "What do you want me to do? Do you want me to sell this land?" And the land that was willed down to her. And she heard no. And then she asked God, well, what do you want me to do? And she heard fight. And so we know that we have to seek God with everything that we do. This is how we're still here. We're still fighting, and pushing through. And so we know that our faith has to be strong to even to continue to even do this work. Like you,
Yeah.
if not, we would have pulled out long time ago and said, okay, we're just going to surrender this land to industry. And so for me, my faith plays a huge role in continuing to fight to make sure that I'm not feeling overwhelmed every day, because it can be overwhelming when you're going to parish council meetings, and the council, all of the council members are voting unanimously to allow more industry to come into your community, the community that you love. And so, prayer is what helps to sustain me and my faith in God. Because I know, that He's gonna see us through it.
Mm. Absolutely. Besides being your home, what makes St. James Parish so special in your opinion, and then through your experiences?
Well, the community. The community, we have the bonfires during the Christmas time, winter time. People are, building the bonfires on the levee. We used to be able to walk on the levee. Just it's very rural, so when I was growing up, there were a lot of sugarcane fields. There's still a lot of sugarcane fields, but there's also more industry now, and more storage tanks that are storing crude oil and other toxins. But just the peacefulness, of the community coming together, everybody know everybody, is very welcoming. um it's home. It's home to me. And there's no, like, this, I hate to be cliche-ish, but Like the saying says, there's no place like home. And if my mom was on this live, she would say there's no other place she wants to live. And
Mm.
um, you know, and I feel the same way. Like it's so peaceful. Now, mind you, due to the influx of industry, the river, it has more traffic in it, so it's a little bit more noisier than what it used to be. People have complained about the barges in the Mississippi River hitting together at nighttime. They can't sleep. So it's more noise than what it used to be. But it's still, in its totality, more peaceful than other places.
So viewer of the Plastic Detox got to know, St. James Parish as Cancer Alley. How
Mhm.
does it feel to hear, such heavy words associated with the place you called home?
Yeah, so when I was in 11th grade of high school back in the 90s, I learned that the area between Baton Rouge and New Orleans was called Cancer Alley. And at the time, I knew it was because of the high cancer rates,
Mm.
but I don't think I really understood what that meant for my community. um, we had a couple of, you know, large petrochemical facilities in the parish, but I don't think I really made the connection. Like I heard it, but then I didn't really comprehend that these the actual chemicals that are being emitted is what's causing the cancer rate to be so high. And so it's not a good feeling. To be called Cancer Alley at all. Like, it kind of deters people from wanting to live here because it's now called it's been called Cancer Alley since the 80s. But now it's becoming more publicly known that the area is called Cancer Alley. And so not a good feeling at all that this is the place I love, and where I'm raising my daughter is called Cancer Alley.
But I also feel that even though there is a pretty bad label, but it really give people a lot of reason to fight that we need to change this, right? Like it should not be Cancer Alley. And I have heard terms in public health that around that region it's called the stroke belt. Because then cancer is one, obviously a really bad health outcome, but also a lot of cardiovascular, a lot of these chemicals are obesogens, diabesogens. They also had a lot of cardiovascular impact. So many
Mhm.
people are also getting stroke, and other cardiovascular diseases. But I felt like we gotta change it.
Yeah, we definitely have to change it. Now, within Rise, we started calling the river parishes the Renaissance parishes because we want to bring back the history of the river parishes, and give it another name where people can like really feel good about the area. And so that's been one way that we are trying to like rename it, but also don't want to take away the name Cancer Alley because we want people to really understand, like just like you said, it's not just cancer, it's the cardiovascular disease, it's diabetes. Like a lot of these chemicals, they are endocrine disruptors as well. So like you said, they're causing obesity, diabetes, which could lead to cardiovascular disease. And so we're seeing those illnesses, and not just that, but also dementia. We're seeing higher rates of dementia and Alzheimer's and um, infertility. I myself suffered a miscarriage before I had my daughter. So we're seeing, and I also experienced infertility before I had the miscarriage. And so we do know that, it's affecting more than just, yeah, more than
Cancer.
just cancer. Yeah, yeah.
How did your community come to know that petrochemicals were the culprit behind a lot of the increased risk of illness?
Yeah, so once we learned about Formosa, that opened up the floodgates to really like do a deep dive into these chemicals. Like we knew, okay, like I can remember being in college and everybody in my house had a rash. And the rash we couldn't get it wouldn't go away. Like my sister, we was going to the doctor. And at one point nothing was working. And so we kind of knew then like something is going on with the water. Um and So it was, I think once we started like really looking at those chemicals, specifically the chemicals that would be emitted by Formosa Plastics, and then as we started learning about other proposed facilities, we would learn more. So it's like it's been a learning curve for us in terms of the chemicals. Like I know way a whole lot more than what I used to know about chemicals. Like the VOCs and the volatile organic compounds, like which ones cause cancer, which ones, cause this type of cancer, lung cancer, breast cancer, prostate cancer. So it's basically we're learning as we go, in terms of which facility is proposing to be built throughout Cancer Alley.
This is like such a crazy idea that like all the community members are now becoming chemists just to
Yes.
understand how to fight for your own right, which is it's just
Hmm.
like people
Yeah.
should not be doing that.
No, no, not at all. I didn't major in chemistry or biology, when I was in college. And, I never thought I would know this much about chemicals. But now I do. Now I do. Unfortunately, I do.
What role do you think that, does environmental injustice play in these situations? Not just in Louisiana, but also like across the country.
Yeah, so what we're seeing and have seen historically is that these petrochemical industries are located and locating in predominantly Black communities. Um, they're not locating in the white communities, and if they try to, the white folks, they are literally like speaking out and saying, "Not here, not in our backyard." But it's an injustice because they're putting a burden on Black communities for single-use plastics, the plastics that make, everyday items. um that burden is being bore by the people that live in my community, and it's unfair, it's unjust that, all it would, like in St. James there are 12 petrochemical industries within a 10-mile radius. And so, when you look at that, like there's no other place where there's that many petrochemical industries in that square mile radius. Um, and throughout Cancer Alley, that 85-mile stretch is like 180 petrochemical industries in that 85-mile stretch. And I'm like, okay, we can't take anymore. We're full. We're full. And it shouldn't be where, a certain population is bearing the burden the way we've been bearing it.
Why do you think they're still targeting this area of the country?
I think they believe is the path of least resistance. It's also considered prime real estate. We are along the mighty Mississippi River, so the petrochemical industries have access to the river. They can, dump the chemicals back into the river. They can transport the products through, up and down the river. They can ship it outside of the country, which a lot of the products are going outside of the country. There's also major highways that they have access to and the railway. And so I think that, like, it's a prime area. There's already industry here. The state of Louisiana also offers tax exemptions, called the Industrial Tax Exemption Program. And so a lot of these, and the majority of them get greenlit in terms of the tax exemption. So they don't pay their fair share of property taxes for 10 years or more. And then sometimes they change their name, they change something, and they get another so many years of being exempt from paying taxes. And so the state of Louisiana draws, new industry into the parishes, saying that, oh, it's going to boost the economy. But it's like, if you don't have any residents, what economy are you boosting it for?
Seriously.
Hmm.
I know Rice and James have been fighting for this, and that there's so much more fight. to
Mhm.
keep going. What do you think consider to be some of the greatest success of Rice St. James?
One of the biggest is that we have kept Formosa plastics out of St. James for 8 years since the governor John Bell Edwards announced that the Sunshine Project was coming to St. James Parish. So we have kept them out. We continue to fight. We just filed a lawsuit with Earth Justice, filed it on our behalf, where we sued Louisiana Department of Environmental Quality for granting Formosa Plastics another extension on their air permit. Um, and we've had some successes in court, in terms of like St. James Parish violating the open meetings law, where they had a meeting with another chemical plant that pulled out back in, I think it was 2019, 2020. And so we were able to get that plant to pull out. South Louisiana Methanol pulled out as well. They were trying to build a plant literally next to our park, um, in St. James Parish. And so we were able to stop, those two for sure. And then of course we've stopped Formosa from coming in. Um, so I think those have been how we've been very successful. We've also did a lot of education. We have an initiative called Chemical of the Month where we educate the community on a chemical that's being emitted. We did the chemicals. We also did certain forms of plastics, and we do radio, television ads, print ads where we try to guide folks to our website to get more information on those chemicals that we now know so much about. We want to make sure that the community is informed and they know exactly what these chemicals are doing to our bodies.
That's huge because we always think that knowledge is power. Unless you know, you can't
Yeah,
act on it. This is
right.
huge.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And my mom was a school teacher, and so education is very important. In terms of plastics, we do right now during the Lenten season leading up to Easter. We also do Plastic Free Fridays where we provide information on plastics each Friday, and we try to get folks to stop using plastics on Friday. Don't purchase it. If you go eat out, don't get your to-go plate in plastic. Bring your own container. Those type of tips we try to offer to reduce people's reliance on plastic.
That's amazing. So, why did you participate in the plastic detox?
Well, we were asked to participate to show um, the relationship between the petrochemical industry and the plastics, how the plastics are produced, and how the communities that are fence line communities, how the plastic production is impacting the communities, not just the folks who may live further out and who are experiencing infertility, um, or um, what I want to say, issues with miscarriages, but to show it from production all the way to how it's impacting society as a whole.
Absolutely. People are sharing clips from the plastic detox and calling Sharon a hero. How does it feel to see her portrayed in such a light?
It is like I'm so proud of her. I am so proud of my mom. Growing up, my mom wasn't as vocal. It was normally my dad. Who, and so seeing her, like, she doesn't back down. Um, it's like, a reversal, where it's like my dad used to be the outspoken one, and of course, he's passed away, but um, I feel like she is carrying on the legacy of my grandfather, her father,
Mhm.
and to watch her every day fight for our communities is what we need in this moment. And I can't express like just how proud I am that she listened to God. that she literally was obedient and did what most people refuse to do. And she's lost some friends behind it. Um, People are often mad at her. And but it's because she loves her community. And so it's been an honor to be a part of Rise and to just watch her in her element on a daily basis.
I also feel that you and Rice St. James not just fighting for your community, it's actually like fighting for all communities because
Mhm.
unless other people see this is possible to actually was a small group fighting for such large companies and it actually making such a big difference in the community. I think that's huge. So like everything that you guys do, not just benefiting your community, it's literally benefiting all fence communities and all other people who are kind of in the same situation.
Yeah, yeah, and we do get calls from people from out of state. Of course, we don't just focus on the St. James Parish community. Like we work with people in Ascension Parish, St. John the Baptist Parish, Iberville, like all up and down the Mississippi River. We even go to Southwest Louisiana to work with communities there because there's a lot of chemical industries there, the liquid natural gas companies out there that's impacting people. And so a lot of times we talk to students from out of state, in state, and they're often inspired by the work that we're doing here, and want to know what they can do in their communities to stop the petrochemical build out.
That's exactly my next question. So how can people get involved in their communities?
Yeah, so find an environmental justice organization in your community, support them, go to their meetings if they're hosting community meetings like Rise, we do a community meeting once a month. We also go into other communities and host meetings like if there's a proposed facility and there's a public hearing coming up about a permit, whether it's an air permit or a water permit. And so I would say, reach out if you see a problem. And if there isn't an organization in your community, start one.
Start one.
Start one. you know. Um I mean, I would encourage them to do that. Like pay attention, like challenge your local government, your state government, the federal government. If you see something that you don't want in your community, be vocal about it. Don't let anybody silence your voice. And if call us if you need to. We got our hands full here, but we definitely will give out pointers. My mama will travel to wherever, if she's invited, if I can, I'll travel or we'll send a staff member. But I would say definitely get involved. Go to here, we have parish council meetings, but go to your metro council meetings. Um Look into what department within your state is your Louisiana Department of Environmental Quality. What body regulates air emissions, water emissions, or discharges. Find out what that department is and start going to those meetings and voice your concerns. Submit comments in opposition. If it's something that you don't want in your community, speak up. Because you usually, if nobody says anything, they're thinking you're okay with that particular facility coming into your community.
Mhm. Now, how can those in Louisiana support Rice St. James?
They can go to our website, www.risestjames.org. We do accept donations. They can always email us if they want to, volunteer. Yeah, I would think, yeah, those ways. I usually don't get asked that question, but but
Hey, we got to get the words out and then get as
yeah.
much support as possible.
Yeah, and follow us on social media because we put a lot of information on social media about like upcoming events, what we're doing. come down and do a toxic tour with us so we can show you like exactly what is happening here. Like you can literally see just how close these industries are located next to people's homes. Um, in St. James Parish, we have over 100 storage tanks just in the fifth district of St. James. And so, we definitely, welcome people coming here to see exactly, and people, the Plastic Detox documentary kind of showed a little bit of the industries, but it's nothing like seeing it in person.
Oh, wow. Anything else you'd like to share? I know we're running over time a little bit.
Okay. No, I don't think so. Just I just want to thank everybody for the support. Sometimes we get beat up sometimes by local folks who, don't think that industry is causing cancer. I don't want to believe it. And so we really appreciate all of the support that we get um, you know, in state, out of state, internationally. And so we really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for everything you do, and please keep up fighting the good fight, and I will be behind you, cheering you on.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
And thank you so much for sharing all the tips. And then for everyone, please make sure you follow Rise St. James and learn all the tips that Shamell just shared. And then, if you don't support your local community, if you don't have one, start one.
Short one. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.